right, Eva. This is one of my favorite questions. And in our when we just were talking, you talked about, I thought, was the influence of people being connected more that we can have on each other and whatnot. So I found that was interesting segue to here, because we all have, you know, influencers can come in a minute, they can come in a lifetime. And another person told me not too long ago that there's also influences that impact us, which I thought was also brilliant. My first influencer, for example, as far as I remember, is my grandfather. We were in Montreal. He was from Kiev. My mom was from Kiev. A lot of people, and he had an accent, but he used to take me for walks in the park. And one day I said to him, I'm Jewish. I said, Zeta, how do you know all these people? And he said, well, one day we were walking, and I just smiled at one, and then they smiled back at me, and then they started talking to me. So I talked to them. And then another person walked by and they saw us and they smiled at us and they started talking. And I understood it as a 5 or 6 year old would, I think. But then I understood it more and more, as we all do with things that happen in our life. So I guess that's why I talk so much right now and smile at people, or something. But can you share with us 2 or 3 people? It could be anybody, maybe not even have met them, that have been influences in your life.
Yeah. I would say the first influencer in my life that really guided how I moved through the world was my great aunt Yosi. And similar to you, my family is Jewish. She was a Holocaust survivor. So for all the reasons you can imagine, that very much impacted her worldview. And as tormented and traumatized as that woman was, it is extraordinary the fortitude and strength of unconditional love. This woman thought that me and my siblings were just the most beautiful, brilliant, sweetest, most, I mean, we could not, do wrong in this woman's eyes, probably to the, again, chagrin of my parents, and were just spoiled rotten by this woman who, and in some ways everybody's like, oh, well, great aunts and, grandma and grandpa, of course, that's the purpose of those roles. But for somebody knowing where she had come from and the darkness that she had experienced, there was a different tone of celebration and appreciation for the innocence of us as the children. And I think even what we represented as knowing that our bloodline effectively was almost lost, and to know that, it almost gives me chills sort of describing that. But just and in many ways, maybe that's even sort of this unconscious idea of legacy came forward for me too, of we survived, and so we were this beautiful thing for her to celebrate and to just be loved in that way. Knowing what could have been on the other side has really influenced me in the way that I move through the world. The second person that I would say has deeply influenced me in my older world, like in my adult life, is my mentor, Jesse Fink, who is, I think he considers, what does he call himself? A venture philanthropist, this person who is a really wonderful systems thinker, understands the role that he plays, understands the role that he calls it sort of the big tent, the way that I look at multi-stakeholder engagement. He looks at it as the big tent. And he's deeply influenced me in sort of how I continue to pursue how to support other people in this system. And his support has allowed me to be like, oh, you know what? Like, okay, maybe I am on the right track. Sometimes I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but if this person believes, with the life that he's led and his positioning in this world, then that has had an extraordinary impact on the boldness that I continue to try to bring each day to my work. And then I would say maybe a third person that I've never met, though I would love to, that I would say influences and energizes me, sort of gives me some comfort, is Mackenzie Scott, who, again, maybe a cliche response, but again, to know when people have a lot of power and wield it for good, it really, in this, moment in history, you were talking before about humanity, to know that people do the right thing and are other leaders who care, it really is not only inspiring, but hugely relieving when I am trying to do good in this world, to know that people who can wield power in one way or the other choose to do it in a way that provides a lot of positive change.
Yeah, those are amazing. Mackenzie Scott is amazing woman, and what she's done. And have you ever read the book? I know your great aunt. Have you ever read the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's spectacular. With what you just said about your great aunt and how he became a certain type of, I can't remember what it's called, psychologist that found meaning in everything. It was
Yeah.
meaning
I'll
in
have to
even the worst things.
add that to my reading list.
Yeah, it's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's a classic, iconic book. So, but good for your great aunt. All that, unconditional love, and we need people believing in us, all the time. We just do.
I know, whether we want to admit it or not, it really helps.
Yeah, it does. And some of the best parents, coaches, you name it, have 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 been so great at getting any of us to reach higher levels because they just believe in us and love us. It works. So maybe that's a good thing for us to remember for other people too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that was a fun thought exercise.